Maneva na sema PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osia dem yopo.
You are once again welcome to PENDREAM TV, the only channel that brings you the best and latest updates in politics. If you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more updates, like and also share to other members to watch as well. You can equally leave a comment after watching or send us a voice note on our WhatsApp number, which is 0277 128 777. Thank you. PENDREAM TV really appreciates your time, and once again, we wish you a happy Merry Christmas in advance. Stay tuned for what we have for you today. And it's all about the bitterness MPP is sharing about this defeat, which Elvis Botah has also come out to share his view and what causes this thing. And he also pledged a support to help recover all looted state properties. Thank you.
It's possible to tie this story as well to the oral team, the Operation Recover All Loot team that has been set up by the president-elect, and also a statement that Mr. Boakye has released in relation to the reclamation of the new patriotic party. But let me read what the Insight has over here. Then with permission from my guests, I'll also proceed to read the statement that has been issued by Boakye. It says, a former New Patriotic Party member of Parliament for Boise East, Edward Eni, has stated his readiness to help uncover all the loot which, according to him, was perpetuated under the Nanado government. According to Edward Eni, he is prepared to appear before any committee set up to look into the gross looting of state resources seen under this government. He indicated that the country's ambassadors and high commissioners know where the stolen monies of the state are shipped to, and when the day of reckoning comes, all of these issues would be brought to bear. I was at the home of one big personality, together with 3 ambassadors from France, the UK, and the US, and the conversation that was had there was dangerous. The ambassadors know about all the monies that are stolen from the country and sent abroad. We are all going to see what will happen, he said in an interview with Accra-based UTV. This is the story as captured by the Insight. And with your permission, let me also read what Boakye, his statement on taking our party back, step 1, in quotes, taking our party back, step 1. The clarifying effects of election 2024 are now manifesting themselves. There is now a clarion call for various actions and steps to be taken to rescue our party, the NPP. Some are demanding that we take our party back. Various suggestions are beginning to emerge on the types of reforms that our party must embark on. All these are good ideas and are welcome. However, we must properly gather all of them together and arrange them to avoid a haphazard and an incoherent set of knee-jerk reactions. In response to a similar situation, albeit less humiliating, there arose a grand conspiracy in 2009 that seized the party under the guise of pursuing reforms and put it in the hand of one man, creating a Caesar thereby. The current clamor in my mind seeks to undo the effects of Caesar on the fortunes of our party. In so doing, we must proceed with care and diligence in our search for restoration and healing so that we do not end up repeating the mistakes of the past. For a start, we must ponder on the following central points that are engaging our minds. We may have a clear idea as to who we are taking our party from, but we must be very sure of whose hands we seek to put the party. We must strive to avoid the situation where we repose total trust and confidence in one man who will then seize the party and treat it as if it were his personal property and the rest of us as his minions to be tread underfoot. This is the last part of the release. It says we must be absolutely clear as to what form of political organization we seek to model our reform on. We must ensure that our efforts this time round create a party of like-minded men and women in pursuit of building a nation for the benefit of all, rather than an organization hijacked by a cabal to transfer public wealth into private pockets, or worse still, a cultic organization that in supine impotence bows to the whims and caprices of an individual. These are the central issues that must seize our attention now. People who forget their history keep making the same mistakes and keep having to start over rather than being able to build upon the wisdom and the accomplishments of the past. And this is the entire press statement by Boakye Ejako, as you can see there displayed on your screens. Elvis Botah, this is your MPP. What is happening?
This is my MPP indeed, and I'm going to take a serious bite at this, and I'm just serving notice. I'll take some considerable time, but within reasonable sense. No, within the limited time I will. A son can always take his father's property. This is a very critical period within our democratic practice. And for me, the reality has come. And it has dawned properly on the NPP. Whatever the NPP's lot has been in these elections is not a surprise. Bless, for quite a number of years today, right? For about 5 years now, some of us have been very particular and critical on our own government, on our own party, and the happenings, the arrogance, all right, the impunity, the lack of sensitivity by appointees under President Akufo-Addo towards even the grassroots of the party was legendary. And some of us have been very, 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 very critical about this administration. So much so that our good standing and loyalty to the party has been questioned on several occasions. Nonetheless, it is important to continue on that path, to let the NPP realize that people like me were never against the party, but we were against the kind of sentiments being raised today by Boakye Ejako. You see, there is history to this whole thing. And the history is that, I'm going to put that in 3 interventions. One, the historical context of this defeat have roots in what happened in the Kufuor's administration. Under Kufuor's administration, there was a certain cabal led by today President Akufo-Addo who felt that, and actually said it, that President Kufuor should keep his government whilst the rest of us take our party. Years down the line, we achieved that aim in making President Kufuor go away with his government. And we had our party under the leadership of a certain Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is now President of the Republic of Ghana. He became president and suddenly thinks that, no, it was important to keep both government and party. So he wants to keep the government and to keep the party. The very thing Kufuor attempted, which he disagreed to. So that is the historical context. And so he had government and he kept his poodles in various positions of advantage. And as though a planned thing away from the rest of the NPP, it appeared they had a particular objective to meet. It is why we didn't see any major reshuffling. It is why we didn't experience any cracking of the whip against appointees who showed to be very recalcitrant and were misbehaving, arbitrarily applying the principles of state and amassing wealth, all right, using their offices. And that gives justification to what any regime will want to do to retrieve some of those wealth. And I support any intervention, be it oral or whatever, that has to do with recovering things looted from the state, so long as there is conformity with the provision of the law. So long as that does not become the resurfacing of the kangaroo courts and the martial courts, okay, that have been deployed in our political history, whereupon some people lost political infrastructure, business infrastructure, and other personal properties which they should otherwise have not suffered. So if there is anything, whether through the office of the special prosecutor, through whatever the architecture of oral will be, I, Elvis Botah, support same. We should do it, and we will actually support it so long as it is lawful. The second thing that has been a problem for the NPP under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, okay, is the fact that the party became a cult. If you did not apply to certain courtesies and their whimsical demands and caprices, you were out of any important table of discussion. And this is why, where some of us had a fundamental and serious problem with the party. I don't go and sit at National Council throughout the night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. sometimes you are there. Then you take decisions, and the next day, people who are not part of cabinet, people who are not part of the National Council, people who are not part of NEC, goes to Facebook, Twitter, now called X, or other social media handles, and whatever they tweet there, whatever they put out there, becomes government policy. Few weeks to elections, I sat here and I warned the party and the handlers of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to stop the hypocrisy and to stop misleading the man, else we were losing the elections in critical proportions, and it happened. They didn't listen. A government that can sideline the vice president, a government where, in which when economic decisions are to be taken, the head of the economic management team could be locked outside. And you think that is normal in governance for a political party like that of the NPP? The party grew into tyrannical proportions, even against its own. So this defeat is not just the doing of anybody. This defeat was the direct demonstration of NPP members, our own members, to the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, that a negative referendum have been passed at you for the sins you have committed against the party for this number of years. Because look, if you cannot crack the whip on appointees, some of whom never worked for this power at all, I can name quite a good number of them whom, when we were actually campaigning in opposition, were abroad. They started trooping into Ghana when we had declaration on the 9th of December 2016. Was when a lot of them started running to Ghana to take lofty positions in huge appointments. Now, the other issue, when some of these things were happening, the other issue which I must tackle is also the issue of executive behavior. So the party, through the executive structures, became a competition of who is able to amass what wealth. And this was where greed set in. From constituency to national, you realize that executives were in the habit of who is able to flex power to control wealth and resources so you can bamboozle the others. So young boys who did not understand political strategy, but because they actually had appointments and made money, especially through dubious means, felt that it was time for them to snatch the party from those who handled it in opposition, those whose intellect, those whose political strategy was critical to not only winning elections, but to also sustaining the gains we had made. They did that. Go back and conduct a serious analysis. You were at the sports stadium in 2022 when we had our national executive. Remember that election you people were sacked. Pan Africa was not allowed audience in there. And I'm proud I was one of those who came to. Justice Appiah will confirm this. A lot happened in that election and pushed elections into midnight just to ensure that some people lose. Deliberately, we bastardized some people. And with the greatest respect to JFK the current General Secretary. He's a good friend and a boss. But I feel that even if it was the case, he wasn't too ripe for General Secretaryship. You see, you may have everything against John Buadu, but the Honorable John Buadu had the magic strategy in making things happen in the NPP. So if he must lose elections, he's got to lose elections on fair balance. But if you don't, and it is part of a grand scheme to get people like him out, because inside the back room, they were speaking some truth to power. And of course, for political maturity at his level, John Buadu will not speak the way I am speaking publicly. But I am witness to some of the fights he had behind the scenes. That even made him take bitter decisions on principle, and they turned it around to make it look as if John Buadu was the most arrogant person against the grassroots of the party, and that culminated into his defeat. Now, what do? All-inclusive leadership. After that national elections, we fail to have inclusivity, we fail to have genuine reconciliation. So people with experience and expertise that brought us to power were not included in these elections. Their decision didn't matter. And what I'm telling you is something that is manifest in the handlers of His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. A good man, a good material in the wrong hands. If you were to write any thesis about elections 2024, this should be the most captivating title of a good thesis to that effect. A good material, a national asset in the hands of wrong handlers. And because he failed to talk, too much diplomacy, too much patience can kill. Those of us who were talking the reality were seen as his enemies. Look at the handlers. Was there anything presidential about those who handled him? We couldn't distinguish between political propaganda and presidential communication. And yet, we had people around His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia communicating with so much arrogance as if they had the magic Comfort Noche had to command the golden stool. You don't do that. Then 2 weeks to elections, you are bribing bloggers and bribing social media people with good followers to just keep hiding. Do we go into critical elections in this kind of regime, in this century, using social media alone, social media hypes that do not find expression in the ordinary lives of the people? No. So look at head-on analysis of our national executives. Those national executives, we saw party operations under the leadership of Samuel Uku when I was his deputy. We saw party operations. Are you getting it? Compare that to this election. There was none. There was little operational tactics on the grounds. Yet we said the job day ground. What did we do on the ground? Apart from trying to catch cameras, most of the NEC members were very busy trying to catch cameras just to look good. You remember there is a certain deputy national communications officer who kept dealing with Pan-Africa, who kept harassing Pan-Africa to withdraw me from speaking on this platform, and actually told Pan-Africa I was never and I've never been an NPP member. So with this kind of arrogance, such an element, such a character, what was his role in these elections? You see, the Ghanaian electorate has become very discerning, and you must, in all humility, communicate reality to them. From the day Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia launched his manifesto, I sat on this platform and said we've lost the elections. Because he sounded hypocritical. Things he stood against in the dark, he had to speak it out in his manifesto. When I become president, I will do this. I will cancel e-levy. I will do this. I will do that. He couldn't tell Ghanaians that at the time of these decisions, he was irrelevant. So what at all was it that Nana Akufo-Addo wanted to achieve? By destroying us to where we are today. So whatever he made look as support for Bawumia was pretense. And so if people like Ajako is talking this way, there are bases for it. But the question I ask Honorable Ajako himself, and he has to answer this question, is that since when did he come to the acknowledgement that Akufo-Addo was a Caesar who seized the party? How can the apostles of Christ, okay, seek to exonerate themselves from the gospel of Jesus' salvation? Will it make sense? It will make sense. But Ajako was one of those in those days of opposition when Akufo-Addo was very busy seizing the party, who supported. He supported him. You were an acolyte to the happenings at the time, unless you want to tell us it was a selfless fight for the party without, any sensitivity to what looked as seizure, then we can forgive that ignorance. Otherwise, objective analysis of the events in opposition will map the Honorable Ajako respectfully, and I have nothing against his person, but I'm analyzing what I know about my party. These were the people who stood firm by Akufo-Addo, even though he had his own bitter share of Akufo-Addo's tyranny. Do you get what I'm talking about? If that is how we want to describe it. So why didn't he speak at the time? Why did he play the ostrich when he campaigned around the nation to us in the NPP that he was a good choice and had all the things to say against Bawumia, and turned around last minute to go and say, no, Bawumia was a good man, he should be voted? Lack of consistency. That's hypocrisy. So yes, I agree that we should rescue the NPP, but we must rescue the NPP fully from everybody we itemize as a problem of the past. And I'm calling on the youth of the NPP from every part of the country, ranging from the north to the middle belt and to the coastal regions, that whatever destruction we are suffering today as a party, okay, was the making of our own architecture. By our own hands, we have actually inflicted this wound upon ourselves. The way forward then is for us not to just lay blames on apathy and protest voting. The way forward is for us to critically, through the tools of research, objectively analyze critical data and information from the right audience. 1, the audience of party. 2, the audience of the nation. 3, political analysts. And 4, the media, of the reality of our defeat. Until we do that, we cannot inform a good and formidable political policy, political communication strategy that will rebuild the party. At this point, we need to reanalyze, rebuild, re-strategize, and recapture power. Today, one of the things we can do is to fish out greedy guys in our own party and hang them. When I say hang, I mean we should shame them. We should let the world know that this is not the attitude, the ideals of our party stands by. And to conclude in a minute, to do so will require a lot of objectivity. Let's broaden the table of conversation. If we want, I've already seen people, rather than us interrogate the basis for our defeat, people have started projecting who must be the next chairman, who must be the next general secretary, which executive did well and who didn't do well. Our parliamentary candidates lost this election because they could not even be truthful to the party in applying their resources. Now, some of the monies we hear in the media as having been given to parliamentary candidates, some of those monies, you wonder why we could not have used, if we had that kind of money, why wasn't that money used to develop the nation? They could do a lot of projects if it is true. Why? So we must stop the hypocrisy. I have a lot to say, but this is not the platform. For want of time, I'm going to rest it here and to warn that we are not even going to allow for people who think that they are those who matter and determines who has a say and who doesn't have a say to lead the charge of rebuilding this party. We are going to rise up. Some of us are going to go to every length, investing time, resources, money, and effort and intellect and using right mobilization in the grassroots to ensure that we take back our party. Akufo-Addo can go with his government. They've done enough at this point. There's nothing we can do about it. But let's take back the party and walk the path of reconciliation, rebuild it and recapture power. It's doable. Right. We can recapture power in 2028. Right. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but that can happen. Right. But this kind of hypocrisies must stop. I conclude with a statement that in all of these happenings, my disappointment is that President Akufo-Addo was not only a bad president, but also a bad political leader, a bad leader of his political party. The party that made him, he has destroyed in forming alliances with friends, cronies, and family members with questionable character. It's so hurting, but the future lies ahead of us, and we will take decisions that are indeed very crucial to ensuring that the NPP becomes a worthy opposition and going forward become a credible alternative to be returned to power.
Thank you very much, Elvis Botah. I'll do a few messages. Good morning, Pan-African TV. My brother from the NPP has made my day. These are the people we want in your studio to talk about issues. Frank from Ho sent this one. Thank you, Frank, for your message. Ghanaians have indeed lived up to the spirit and the letter of our beloved national anthem and have really resisted oppressors' rule in the last election. Our politicians must know that we don't just sing the anthem for singing's sake, but we live by it. Kwesi from Tumu in the Upper West region. Good morning to the people in Tumu, Sisala East for that matter. Thank you so much for doing the watching. Good morning to you and your panelists. Please, I wish the oral team will be having a WhatsApp line given to the public to aid their investigations. Philip Akunwe from Navrongo. Thank you, Philip. And MPP will no more be attractive if they continue to act the way they are behaving lawlessly after the election, knowing the truth and turning blind eyes to it. They should handle their matters tactically, not to destroy it. From Gabi in Sogakofe. Thank you, Gabi. Good morning to the people of Sogakofe as well. Alasan Sisi from Zenu Central says, these oral team members are a solid team and they can be trusted, and I believe they will do a good job for Ghana. Let's all support them to gather the information about where our monies and the state properties have been looted too. If you are not guilty of any crime, there's no cause to worry. All right, thank you, Al-Hassan, for your message. Good morning, bless. God bless you for the good work you are doing. Please ask Uncle Kwesi Pratt, how do I join the socialist movement for Ghana? Ndemiya Kwashi from Takrade sends this one. Why was Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia not part of the 40-member committee set up to look into the depreciation of the cedi against the dollar? Ibrahim Wechel sent this one. From office to uphold the constitution, maintain the integrity of the judiciary, and restore public confidence in our judicial system, the petitioner said. Elvis Botah, surprised?
I mean, I'm not surprised. It was expected that if there is a change of government, people will have these kind of concerns and calls for the removal of the Chief Justice and the removal of the chair for the EC in particular. And depending on how things goes, even some of the sensitive security sectors. It has actually always been the case. Some of these things we are witnessing are not strange when there is change of power, except that they are very pronounced now than before, because there is also an inexorable rise in, people having to benefit social media interfaces now, and that is killing traditional media. Otherwise, most of these things for me are not a surprise at all. I'm not going to delve into the merits of the petition because it was not written to me, and I did not actually have time to delve into the full details of it. But whatever it is, there are constitutional basis in doing what the petitioner did, and obligation now lies upon the appropriate quarters to set up the right commission to be able to sit on the matter and to give their recommendations to the president. I believe when that happens, we will know. Ours will be to be monitoring and to ensure that the process is free, is fair, It's devoid of any form of, acrimony or discrimination. One thing I want to say in tying this story back into, the topic we've all just taken a bite on is the fact that anything that makes the system works, it's okay. But the warning I will give is that we should not apply ourselves to such dealings as may look merely, tangential to wanting to pursue the path of vengeance and vindictiveness. If there are legal, legitimate, concrete basis to get anybody out of office, we should do it. Remember when President Akufo-Addo relied on a petition to get Charlotte Osei out? I spoke against it here on this panel. I spoke against it, and I was like, if we are not careful, we are setting the precedence that any new president that comes will find a way of getting a petition. It's so easy to incite people to bring petitions. Get this one off, appoint another. The next person coming will not trust the person. Chief Justice, the same. My advice to the incoming NDC administration will be that in as much as these concerns may come, in as much as their grassroots may be putting pressure on them in some of these things, when they should look at it critically. You can always get people queried. The system can always create a certain climate that gets people to act proper, even without a word of caution. Because in doing all of these things, oral, resetting, system harmonization and whatnot, we must also be minded, like I cautioned earlier, that we don't rather convert this thing into trying to please, grassroots desire for vengeance, for vindictiveness, and for what may look as what people are describing as witch hunting. Of course, where there are witches, we've got to hunt them. But don't make witches in people. I think that the call for the removal of the CJ, in my opinion, is something we should look at again. But it depends on what evidence the petitioner is having. I want to associate fully with what Daddy said. I'm just rehashing. If we must have a serious government in the NDC, then it must not take off from the basis the Akufo-Addo administration took off, departing from almost every significant, promise. The gender promise made a great influence in this election, and as Daddy cautioned, that must reflect. And not only that, it's not just about oral. They should go back and prioritize the thematic flagship areas they campaigned on. And from day one, the formation of their government must tie into that, and their actions and inactions must feed into all of that, not only oral. Let's make sure that enthusiasm do not skew them into just trying to please grassroots alone and may end up disappointing everybody, because there is a danger in the kind of expectation with which John Mahama has been re-elected. There is a danger with that kind of expectation. A failure to meet it and to be seen as being preoccupied with things that are trivial can be dangerous, and such petitions can be the foundations for such. If such petitions are not truly genuine and are not looked at to their fullest extent, I will make no further comment on this. I will always be a partner to things that will make Ghana work in the interest of the youth and the prosperity of the state.
They'll pass the mini budget. But Elvis, Botah, let me take your thoughts on this issue.
Well, what is that budget even coming to add to us in the first place, assuming it is approved? The mini budget, what is it coming to do to us? Look, that budget is not coming to alleviate the worries and the woes of Ghanaian youth who cannot pay rent. Not only the youth, in fact, a lot of Ghanaian workers out there cannot pay rent. They can't renew their rent. A lot of people out there cannot feed. Prices of commodities in the marketplace still continues to rise. Corruption have not been dealt with. Insecurity continues to be a worry. And in fact, for the girl child, basic sanitary issues lingers. How will all these cheap economic jargons tied to reading of budgets, whether it is mini or whatever, if the main budget could not instigate any meaningful change, how do you expect a mini budget to do so? Are you getting it? So listen, we need a conversation on a holistic economic approach to transforming this nation. Those are the things we should be talking about. This whole mini budgeting is becoming an issue. In one of the papers, I saw lamentations on the fact that the finance minister was not present when a motion on same was tabled. And I'm like, what is all of these things? Be it as it may, these are constitutional imperatives in the democratic process, in our governance architecture, and the framework allows us to be able to leverage same, to be able to add on to the prospects of well-being in the Ghanaian people. Whatever the problem is, whether hung parliament or not, that parliament house there must know that their actions and inactions have a telling on Ghanaians, and they are there in a representational capacity for all of us. So they should act proper. Whatever that is good for the progress of Ghana should be their agreement and their resolution, irrespective of the numbers. If I sit in parliament as an MP, I'll have no problem voting a good cause coming from the caucus of the NDC in the spirit of nationalism. If I have to rise on my feet in parliament to actually debate against a motion from my own leadership, if I think it is not in the interest of the nation, Dr. Botah will do that. And it shouldn't surprise anybody who is familiar with my style. So that should be the real spirit of nationalism, that vigilantism for state success that must transpire in parliament. So I see the NPP complaining, but who is the cause of the hung parliament? Whatever caused us to lose a lot of the seats we lost in this election was what caused the hung parliament in 2020. When we turned against each other, others thinking they've made so much money and we don't care. Arrogant appointees of President Akufo-Addo who felt that the world revolves around them. That's the result. So they are now complaining, blame the NDC, they are using their numbers to bully us. Now who caused them? When you've kept arrogant appointees there, most of whom lost primaries, and you see, these things we are talking about, the appointees are the problem. And most of them have not been able to add on to the basket of the NPP, especially in this election. The DCE for Nadoli Kelio district, where I come from, the polling station where she votes had only 14 votes for Baumia. Honorable Kate Lankono had the polling station where she votes 14 votes. It is an indictment on the president that you and your appointees are irrelevant in the scheme of community building. For a sitting DCE, 8 years in office uninterrupted, always have problems with communities. 14 votes from where she votes in her own hometown. Tell me, with that kind of attitude, how will government policy thrive? They should stop blaming hung parliament. Hung parliament is not the issue. A lot of government business have been approved by this same hung parliament. What is the distinguishing feature of this one? There is a fundamental problem. And the minister should come and tell us what that problem is. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We once again say thank you and Merry Christmas to all our cherished viewers, home and abroad. May God grant you your wishes this Christmas and the New Year in advance. Thank you for staying tuned. God be with you. Bye-bye.
PENDREAM TV now, so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.